folks, welcome, welcome. Welcome to what is going to be our last live stream of this semester. I know, right? It's like, oh my gosh. Now, at the end of the lecture, I'll give you an update on what we're going to do next week in terms of the final module and the final review over Zoom and so forth. So just stick with me. But this is going to be the last time that we meet over YouTube like this. And it's going to be a fairly short and hopefully fun lecture. All right. So looks like we've got folks on board. So with that, let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to first tell you a story. All right. Today we're talking about economic bubbles. Well, I want to show you a couple of graphs here. This first graph, let's see if I can bring, does that, yeah, you know what? I bet if I were to click on that, I can probably bring up a lather, all right? The first graph, you notice this, going up, 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 and then down. By the way, the second graph does the same thing, up, 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 and then down. So this is the fingerprint of a bubble burst, a bubble starting and a bubble bursting, all right? And we can see this fingerprint all over the place. Now, this first one here, this is the stock price of Intel Corporation, all right? Intel inside, it's in your computers and so forth, unless you have AMD. And you notice it goes up, 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 and then bam, the bubble bursts. Well, the red line is not where it hit peak necessarily. The red line marks the day I was hired with Intel, okay? And when I was hired with Intel, we didn't see any of this, right? Let's come on over here so that we can see it a little better. We didn't see the bottom part of that, right? I only knew about the first part, the building of stock price. And I'm not making any of this up. When I was recruited with Intel, I did some math. And I thought, okay, well, given the stock package I'd been given and given this, that, and the other, and how many times the stock had split over the last 10 years and the trajectory it was taking, I calculated that I would be able to retire a millionaire by the age 55. Once 55 hit, I'd be able to retire with millions in my checking account. Well, for those of you playing at home, I'm 57 right now and I'm not retired because the bubble burst. It all fell apart. This is what we would call the internet boom, okay? The tech boom and bust. All right, so that's that first graph. Let's look at the second graph. Where is it? There it is, okay? The second graph is the housing market. The first line is where my father spent in money that he had and in money that he took loans out of. He probably spent $1.5 million building a luxury home out in Telluride, Colorado, or near Telluride. Built the home himself, put in $1 million and a half. Maybe, half of it his own money. The other half was money borrowed from the bank. And you notice with the way the housing market was going up, he was going to be set for life. Well, the second red line marks where he finished the house. First red line, when he started building. The second red line, when he finished building. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that he lost everything. Now, don't worry, my father's doing just fine. He's retired and living the life that he wants to live. But he lost everything. He lost absolutely everything, all because of the bubble bursting. All right? Well, that's what we get to talk about today. And now that laser is going to drive me nuts, so I'm going to just get rid of it. There we go. Okay. What we're going to talk about today is what's an economic bubble? Why do they keep happening? What causes them? And how do we look out for them? All right. Lindsay, it's both sad and not. So, gosh, that's working. Is the sound effects going? Yeah, they are. Okay. So, Lindsay, he lost everything. And technically, he's homeless. Except he's not. Because his dream, his whole life, I was raised by baby boomer hippies. His dream, his whole life, was to basically be a campground host, live in a trailer, and drive from campground to campground over the seasons, and just basically spend his whole retirement camping. That's his goal. And I got news for you. It doesn't take a whole lot of money to spend your entire retirement camping. Right now, at this very moment, folks, he is hiking the Colorado something trail. It's 500 miles. So my father, who's like almost 80 years old, is hiking the Colorado Trail and doing fantastic. So yeah, his bank account's empty, but he's living the life he always planned on living. So it's great. Yeah, Kiana, worked just fine for him, right? And what could, it's not like living your life camping is all that awful, right? Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, so bubbles, bubble. It's like Finding Nemo, bubble. Now, the reading that was offered up was Tulipomania by McKay, I think it is. Oh, I don't have his name up here. I think it's McKay. Somebody tell me in the comments. It's a famous piece that really talks about the tulip bubble of I think it was 1600s in Denmark and so forth. Interestingly, though, one of the podcasts included in this reading basically debunked the tulipomania as a true bubble. It's not as grand of a bubble as history likes to remember it. The podcast actually offered up a more salient bubble, which was the railroad industry in the 1800s, I think it was. Late 1800s, early 1700s, I forget. But then the video that I offered up talked about comic books. Because while I got hit in the tech bubble, the internet bubble, the .com bubble, that's what it was called. It was called the .com bubble. I got hit in the .com bubble. My father got hit in the housing bubble. I also got hit in the comic book bubble. So what we're going to do, Charles McKay, thank you. That was the one. I thought it was McKay, but you can never be, you got to make sure you get this stuff right.
Hi, I'm Captain America, and I'm here to tell you, stay in school, and that if there's one thing you're going to learn from this class, it's to endure silliness.
Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to discuss bubbles using both tulips as well as comic books. And then we're going to talk about bubbles that we're going through right now. By the way, one of the things about bubbles is you don't see them very clearly until they're already burst, but we'll talk about that. All right. So, ingredients of an economic bubble. All right. So, first ingredient is whatever you're purchasing is kind of a status symbol. All right. So in the case of tulips, well, we talked in the past about Thurston Veblen's pecuniary emulation. We like to be perceived as successful by others. And for legit reasons. This isn't because we're all shallow, vapid, morons. It's important for us to be perceived as hardworking and successful and accomplished so that we will be included in the collective, we will be given opportunities and things like this, right? Well, you got to show off that you're successful. Now, we talked about ways that you show off you're successful, bling, cars, homes, things like that. Well, in Holland, in the Netherlands, it was tulips. Now, don't get all high and mighty about how ridiculous tulips are as a status symbol. Today, in where you live, a person's front lawn is a status symbol. We spend a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of energy, I know I do, maintaining our yard. It's curbside appeal. It's a status symbol. Okay. In the case of comic books, well, heckatees, folks. These comic books right here, these comics right there, those are some high-end comic books. And another one up over here on the wall that you've seen. There's a $600, $700, $800 worth of comics in those 3 books that I have up there. So, and if you're a comic book aficionado, you know what those are. Status symbols. Okay. Next one is rarity. Now, in the case of comic books, yeah, those old, Silver Age, is Golden Age as well, but those are all Silver Age comics and Golden, Golden. They're rare. They're really rare because most of them got thrown away, they fell apart, and so on and so forth. So these comics are pretty darn rare. Tulips were really rare as well. Not because the tulip itself was rare, but because the ones that were really fancy were. Because this virus would work its way into the tulip, which would kill off most of the tulips. But those that it didn't kill off had this cool, fiery color coming through. And people didn't really know what was causing either the death or the fiery color, but it meant that these things were really rare and really expensive and really desirable. Same thing goes with my comic books, right? The one on the bottom is the first appearance of Juggernaut in the X-Men. The one on the top was the first appearance of Spider-Man's black suit. Okay, let's keep going. So low supply, high demand. All right. The supply of comic books is really low, the old ones, because most of them are destroyed, gone, right? Or they're not being sold. But when there was a boom in the 1990s, the demand was high, crazy high. If you watched the video that I made about the comic book bubble in the 1990s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Same thing goes with the tulips. Everybody wanted their hands on one of these cool, fiery tulips, but the supply was really, really low, but the demand was high because everybody was getting in on it. All right. And the last one for this first part is low buy-in. Low buy-in basically means anybody can purchase a comic book. You may not be able to get a $200 or $300 comic book, but there's plenty of cool comics that were 15, 20 bucks that were kind of like, oh, cool. That's a low buy-in. Same thing with tulips. You may not be able to get the really cool fiery ones, but you could get a lot of really nice, basic, decent ones for a relatively low price. So anybody could get involved. Now, this is a problem because with low buy-in means the uneducated masses, you and me, can go ahead and get involved in what is essentially a risky market and put ourselves at risk. Now, I want you to notice these first ones here. This is kind of standard economics, right? Okay, there's a status symbol, you want to get a hold of it. It's fairly rare. There's low supply, high demand, low buy-in. This alone is not what makes a bubble. Let's talk about what takes it to the next level. The low buy-in is the first part of the bubble, but then the next one is speculation. Speculation is when you speculate that the price of something is going to go up. All right? So you're purchasing an item not because you want to own it, not because you want to use it, not because of anything. The only reason you're purchasing is because you think it's going to go up in price and you are going to resell it. Okay? That is speculation. So people started to buy up the tulips, not because they wanted to plant them or show them off or keep them or anything, but just because they kept them in a cellar and they just were going to sell them again in a month or in a year because the price was going to go up. Comic books, same thing. They all got just gobbled up. Again, if you watch my video on the comic book boom, you know what I'm talking about. Everybody, myself included, started buying comic books on speculation like crazy. Okay? Any first edition, I bought it. Any variant cover, I bought it. Any notable event, I bought it. And not just one, 10 of them, right? Well, this created stockpiling. So everybody's buying these things on speculation. They have no intention of using them or displaying them or anything like that. They're just putting them in a cellar until they can sell them, right? Remember? Speculation. So there were huge, massive, stockpiles of tulips just tucked away. Same thing with comic books, massive stockpiles of comic books. Well, now this did a few things. One is it made the market look artificially high. Since supply was low because people are buying them and stockpiling them. Buying on speculation, stockpiling. Therefore, it looks like there's nothing out there and the price is going way up because it's so rare. It's not rare. People are stockpiling. Okay, the next one then is futures. Futures is where things start to really, really, really get out of hand. People are buying and selling items that they don't even own on futures. So, for example, let's say I want to, work the futures market with tulips, right? Well, the tulips are going for $100. Well, I think they're going to go up a whole lot more, but they're not even out yet. They're still being grown. So I buy the right to purchase these tulips at $100 right now. Even though the tulips don't even exist yet, I purchase the right to buy them once they do exist at $100. Well, the price of this future goes up. Somebody later says, I think they're going to go up to $200. And you go, really? I have $100 worth of tulips here. You think they're going to, the receipt for it, not the actual tulips. And so people start buying and selling these futures, right? The tulip doesn't even exist. And yet we have created this. So eventually somebody's going to be held with this requirement to buy tulips at $10 each, and they paid $100,000 for it or whatever, right? Well, that's great if the market keeps going up. But when the market bursts, now they've just spent all this money on worthless tulips. Furthermore, no regulation. Nobody's regulating this. It's laissez-faire to the umpteenth degree. And then when the bubble bursts, everybody's trying to sell. And when everybody is selling at once, all of a sudden this rarity, it's no longer rare. All those stockpiles are coming out of people's basements. And now all of a sudden there are tens of thousands, if not millions of these things out for sale. Well, supply is high and demand is low. When supply is high and demand is low, prices plummet. And yes, I saw this happen with housing. I saw it happen with .com. I saw it happen with comic books. These folks, purportedly saw it happening with tulips. So that is a boom and bust. Where do you see this happening today? Now, remember, we tend to not see it so well when it's happening. We think sky's the limit. But, where do you see bubbles happening today? Let's take a couple of minutes and see what we can come up with in today's economy. Okay, so now we've got some stuff coming up here. Let's take a look. So, let's see here. Yeah, I got a lot of my comic book collection. That is for darn sure. Let's see. Anna says, that's interesting. I don't think I would have associated bubble purchases with status symbols. Oh, Tesla. Okay, now Tesla's an interesting example. Yeah, it's actually the right product at the right time and currently at the right price point. By the way, today is the first day that the truck is now available. First one went off the assembly line for sale in Texas, I heard. But yeah, that's for a while there. They could charge whatever they wanted. Let's see. And would you consider a diamond industry a bubble, even though? Okay, so let's talk about the diamond industry. That's an interesting idea. So diamonds kind of have a consistent value. I would be very curious to look at a value chart of diamonds. They pretty much have had some level of value their entire existence. They're used in jewelry, they're used in industrial settings and so on and so forth. But I could see where bubbles could occur. Let's see. Okay. Wondering if there will be a vintage Barbie bubble. Oh, now that's an interesting thought, Lindsay. Yeah, with the Barbie movie coming out and the reviews look fairly good. Yeah, I could actually see something like that happen. Now, on that note, to support what you're saying, Lindsay, I remember, I'm old, so I remember when the live action version of 101 Dalmatians came out. And everybody wanted Dalmatian puppies until they realized that these are high energy dogs. And so then the pounds were full of Dalmatians. So that was a small bubble there, right? Yeah, Anna, I agree. I could see that happening. Just like the GameStop and AMC stock. Yes. Okay. That's an interesting situation. So, yeah, that was a bubble created on social media through Reddit and so forth. I think that's a great example. Does market speculate in? Yes. Marketing totally influences this to an absolutely stupendous degree. Yeah. It hasn't come, here it is. Anna talks about crypto. Yes, that's a bubble. Now, I want to be, and they were marketing crypto like crazy, right? So here's something I want to make clear about bubbles. A bubble is not saying something is a fraud. It's a bubble. So, for example, there was a .com bubble. There are still .com companies out there. I don't know if you've been on the internet lately, but there's still .com. Tulips. That was a bubble. There are still tulips and they're still expensive. Comic books. They're still out there. And MCU is doing just fine. Thank you very much. Homes. Last I checked, there are still homes for sale. All of these things are legitimate products and services, or products in this case, that just went through a speculation bubble. Crypto is the same sort of thing. It hasn't found its feet yet, but it has all the earmarks of a bubble. And when you look at the price of Bitcoin, you'll see the fingerprint. Okay? You'll see that fingerprint that says this is a bubble. But again, that doesn't mean that if you or I invest in crypto, it doesn't mean that it's, not real. There will be a place for blockchain in the future. We just don't know what it is yet, and the bubble got ahead of us. Okay, great. Trading cards, comic books, old toys. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so housing. This is one of the reasons that, and let's do this one. This is one of the reasons that the Fed got really, really concerned about the economy heating up so much and housing prices just going cuckoo bananas. They wanted to avoid another bubble. So they intervened and raised interest rates and so forth. Furthermore, there are a ton more regulations today than there were during the housing bubble of 2009 and so forth. So these are things that government has done to decrease the odds of a really ferocious bubble taking over. Social media, that's a great one. Maybe electric cars. If people have money, they'll spend it. Ain't that the truth? It burns a hole in my pocket. It's so true, right? Mountain bikes. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, diamonds rare. Let's see. Yeah, not necessarily rare, marketed as rare. That would be interesting to explore because, okay, first of all, you've got blood diamonds, which shouldn't be on the market in any way, shape, or form, which means what's left are the ethically mined diamonds. But then there are industrial diamonds that are created and so forth. So it would be interesting to look at that market. I think that would be fascinating to look at the market. I don't know. And that's totally fine to say you don't know, but then you go off and explore. Okay? Absolutely great. Let's get... Okay, so you have a really good understanding of bubbles there. That is great. All right, now we're going to shift gears. Should we do do we need a stretch? Nah, I think we're all right. It's going to be a short one today. So shift gears. The reading you had here, Romance of a Busy Broker. Short story, right? Old short story. It's kind of an M. Night Shyamalan twist ending, all right? So if you didn't read it, let me give you a really quick synopsis of it. And then I can go ahead and talk about what it means for us. I forget the characters' names. Okay, so there's this broker, right? And he's a busy broker. I got that from the title. So there's this busy broker, and he has a business partner, and they also have a typist. Basically secretary, executive admin, stenographer, they were called back in the day. He's got the stenographer. And so they start the day, and the business partner comes into the broker and says, hey, by the way, I have the interviews lined up for the replacement stenographer here this afternoon. So just know that that's on your calendar. And the broker's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. And then the stenographer walks in, and she kind of gives the broker a smile and says, good morning. And she's looking rather nice. And the broker starts thinking, actually, I really like our stenographer. Why are we interviewing a stenographer? And so he talks to the partner and says, why are we doing these interviews? And he says, well, you told me we need to pull the interviews. We're going to replace her. And he's like, he's being pulled in different directions, phones going off, people bothering him. And he's finally like, I cancel those interviews. I don't understand why we are, hiring a new stenographer. And the more he thinks about it, the more he thinks he's rather fond of this gal. And he thinks, gosh, I'm actually really smitten by her. So he goes up to her and says, listen, I'm really busy. I've got a phone call I got to do and then a meeting in 2 minutes. But I just wanted to take a second and ask, will you marry me? I mean, I know this is coming out of nowhere, and I really don't have time to discuss it. Time is money. But so if you could give me an answer, I'm rather taken by you and like to know if you'd marry me. And she pauses and kind of looks down, but then smiles and says, I was afraid this would happen. She says, the reason we're hiring another stenographer is because you and I got married last night over at the church on the corner. He's just too busy to remember. So that's the M. Night Shyamalan ending of this thing, right? All right, cute story. Really easy, though, to discount it. I mean, who doesn't remember their marriage, right? Their wedding and so forth. Well, I agree. Obviously, I'm saying this. I'm saying it's a little much. But, guys, you really need to understand that this system that we live in of capitalism, which I adore, I love, I've lived in many economic, political systems. I've lived around the world. This is far and away my favorite, but it is jacked up something ferocious if you're not careful. There are tools that this system will use to control you, to try to get more work out of you, to try to get you to give more while they give less. And I'm going to talk about 8 of these. All 8 I have experienced, I have seen in my friends and family, and I have actually used as a manager. I'm telling you, these are really, really, really common, okay? And we need to be aware of them so they don't take over our lives. The first one you know all about, the profit motive, right? We believe that happiness will come with that one more thing, but it's never enough, right? You're always striving for more. Remember, one of the things that we said about the profit motive is that it's never enough in your current state, so you're striving for more, which is awesome. Keep striving. But what that necessarily means is that we are not fully satisfied with our current state. So the current state in which we live is the current state that we're unhappy with. So if we're not careful, we are perpetually unhappy. But what this does is, since we always want more, we're always willing to work more. So that's the first one. The next one we talked about, the Protestant work ethic. There's this thing out there that tells us that you shouldn't be lazy, you shouldn't take too much leisure time, you should always be working, you should always be investing in yourself, you should always be doing something productive and so forth. This started in the 1800s and hasn't let up since. And so this is something else that society and the system uses as leverage to get you to work more. In China, they have something called 996, which is you work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. That's more than we do here in the U.S., but I've got news for you. If you work in certain industries, when I was in the tech industry, 60, 65 hours a week was bare minimum, right? And so you got to work. The next one is we've managed to convince ourselves that we can have it all, right? We don't like the idea of limits, constraints. I want to be a fully engaged father or mother. I want to have a thriving career. I want to have a cool, exciting hobby. I want to have a social life. I want to do all these things. And it's like, you can't. But we don't like being told we can't. And so we push against it. We go ahead and, as a parent, start a 45-hour-a-week career, 50-hour-a-week career, and yet still think that we can be a present parent, and at the same time think that we can be a good supportive spouse, and at the same time can be a church or synagogue or mosque volunteer and so forth. And it works us to death. Just absolutely works us to death because we've been told you can have it all, rather than saying, no, I'm going to pick my top 3 and do those 3, and that's it. There's also FOMO, right? Companies leverage FOMO as well. We want to be part of the projects. We want to invest our time and energy in this, that, and the other. So we're trained to look for and pursue every possible opportunity, which is cool because there's a lot of opportunity out there, but you can't chase everything and expect to catch it all. Now, one of my favorites is the irony of wealth. It's a strange thing, but when you think about it, it's pretty intuitive. The wealthier you are, the more expensive it becomes to be wealthy. So let me give you an example. You have a car, all right? That car costs money, right? You got to buy the car, but then you got to maintain it and so on and so forth. But that's awesome. You've got a car. Okay, now get 2 cars. Now, having 2 cars is kind of a sign of wealth, or 2 homes. But now you need to maintain these homes, maintain these cars. Mo money, mo problems. That's, it's so freaking true. We don't really understand or embrace it to the extent that I feel like we should. I work a ton keeping this house up and running, keeping the yard nice, keeping the home nice, all that sort of stuff. I can't even fathom the idea of 2 homes. And I've seen people, in my family and so forth that have boats and airplanes and all this stuff. And it's like, it's so expensive maintaining it. Therefore, the richer you become, the harder you need to work to maintain your riches. It's weird. It sounds counterintuitive, right? And the more you worry about keeping it. Absolutely true. Absolutely true, I believe, right? Create jobs, hopefully. Okay. Let's see. It's hard to say no at work. Work really wires you to make sure that you never say no to a job, never say no to overtime, never say no to staying late, never say no to taking on an extra client or extra responsibility, because you're afraid of what might happen if you say no. You'll be cut off from future opportunities. You won't be given the perks that you've enjoyed so far and so on. There's the FOMO aspect of it. You'll be afraid of missing out. And so whenever our managers, our supervisors, our clients, our customers ask for more, we seem inclined to say yes. and that overstretches us, right? Not OT, no overtime, no promotion, and so forth. Yes, we really feel like these things are being watched, and the more we say no, the more we cut off ourselves from these opportunities. And I pushed the wrong button there. Okay. And then I think this is a couple more. And in full disclosure, let's see. By the way, Anna says, oh my gosh, my current job asked me to start earlier than what I expected. And then, yeah, totally, right? And then, of course, yes, burnout totally hits. Totally. The last couple are ones that are really close to my heart because they're the ones that affect me the most. First of all, work productivity is a great place to hide. Okay? Active inaction. I like this quote, as St. Francis de Sales pointed out, there's no better way to put off doing the big things than by busying ourselves with the little things. So, without trying to be too much of a downer, spoiler alert, life is hard. Life is really hard. And when you start getting spouses and kids and businesses and homes and cars and responsibilities, the harder and harder it becomes. And the more tricky and wicked and messy and the problems become. There are problems you're going to face that you won't even know how to approach. Now, granted, yes, Anna, life can be amazing as well. I agree completely. But anything amazing comes through hard work. Nobody ever got anything amazing out of a Cracker Jack box. Amazing things come from amazing effort. But now, the temptation is to run away from the messy problems to the simple, clear problems of work. Let me show you what I mean. At work, the lines of authority are clear. The expectations are clear. Your role and responsibility is clear. The skills that you need to bring to the table are clear. The contract is clear, okay? Now, relatively clear. Versus when you go home and there are messy problems where there are no clear expectations, no clear roles and responsibilities, no clear actions to take to bring about a solution and so forth, it can become very overwhelming. And so as a result, there's a strong temptation to hide in our work, okay? Sarah says, I feel like some people use work as an excuse to get away from home. I do. I really feel that way. I've seen it an awful lot in my career. The last one is we like being overworked. All right, bear with me. We brag about how busy we are, waving our self-perceived martyrdom syndrome for all to see and admire. We attach our sense of self-worth to our title and salary, okay? I hate it when people say things like, my coworkers, people who I work with, right? Oh, I've just been so busy. I'm so behind. Now, bear with me. I'm saying this in extremes to show a point. In my mind, when you say you're behind, that means you have poor time management skills and you lack the ability to prioritize your responsibilities. But when they say they're behind, what they're meaning to say is, I am so important and so in demand and so vital that nobody can live without me, and I am inundated with work because look how integral I am to the world. Now, again, I exaggerate to make a point, but I have seen people really get a lot of sense of identity out of being the busy person. There's this cool skit on Saturday Night Live, that they talk about the overworked person. I guess I ought to find it and attach it here. But you know what? We like it because we're rewarded when you're really busy and really productive. Okay. And so, yeah, it's a place we tend to go to. So, hate being overwhelmed, hate having to tell my friends that I can't go out, right? Working 5 days, right? I call it Stockholm Syndrome relationship with work. What a great freaking way of looking at it. Stockholm Syndrome with work. Oh, that's freaking clever. Oh gosh, I'm gonna take a picture of that one and remember that one because I agree. Let's see. Grandpa always asks, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Absolutely. Serenity, I live in a family of busybodies, so it's a bad thing when you aren't busy to my family because of all that. Feel a little better about myself when I'm able to tell, yeah, productive beats busy. Lindsay, you're right. So busy and productive are not the same thing. Serenity, to support what you're saying there, every day I drive my wife into work and then pick her up. And we both, and we've talked about this, right? We both feel this obligation to tell the other all the things that we accomplished that day, to kind of say, you see, I'm a valuable member of this relationship and I'm not just living off of you, right? And that's a strange thing, but we both feel a sense of satisfaction when we can report to the other, I was productive today and I accomplished a lot. So, yeah. Folks, you knocked it out of the park yet again. I've actually decided for my next semester live stream, these light bulbs down here, I'm going to have this thing that when you hit 15, I'm going to have all the light bulbs blow up and so forth and be replaced by something more modern that will take it to the next level, because you guys have demonstrated to me that this is not enough, that you're always able to do more. That's great. Busy is fine, but how I'm busy is different. Yeah. Don't want to be busy to be about when somebody else needs. Yeah. When somebody else needs you. Yes, totally. Okay. So that wraps up our live stream lectures. All right. So what are we going to do next week? Well, here's the thing. There is a module 13, but I'm going to waive that. Okay, so you're going to see that assignment kind of get waived on Canvas. So you don't have to worry about module 13. Furthermore, I'll take care of things in the final such that you don't have to worry about 13 in the final. So today is the last of our lectures. So then that means our final. Next week, when we meet, we will meet over Zoom. I will send out a link in the announcements and in email. And we'll go through the final. I'll take you through the main things and so forth. Now, incidentally, if you have been taking notes, I'm glad to see you're happy with the waived assignment. That's just fine. If you have been taking notes, if you've been using the study guide that I provided and taking notes against that and so forth, you're set. You're just totally set, because the final is open note, at home, no time limit. You're going to be fine. So if you've got a completed study guide all filled out and so forth, don't worry about it. When we come back next week over Zoom, we'll go over everything and so forth. Now, I'm not going to try to cover an entire semester of lectures in an hour, right? So I'll show you the sort of questions that are going to be asked, and I'll give you some hints and, direction and so forth. But have your study guide available, have that up and running when we're meeting over Zoom, and I promise you're going to be in great shape. And then remember, there's always extra credit, right? Now, you guys have been freaking swimming in extra credit, so you're going to do fine. But if you end up getting a few points less on the final than you wanted, and you like to make sure you're all set, subscribe to Nutshell Brainery, subscribe to my Long Shift Power channel, sign up for my newsletter, let me know that you've done these things, and I'll get you more points. But yeah, cheat activated? Absolutely, right? Oh, I was wondering, cheat. Yeah, the international business. Okay, yeah, I was, well, okay, cheat, so that you know, okay, send me an email. Everybody send an email. Remember, send an email that says here, email here. And you see these points down here at the bottom? You get those extra credit points. But support me at Nutshell Brainery as well. It's free, right? But you give me an audience that I can continue to support. And then when you need references and recommendations in the future, oh, Chris, okay, fantastic. So we will meet next week over Zoom, and we'll take care of you there. All right. As usual, I'm going to stick around. If you have any questions or anything that I can help you with, let me know. And otherwise, take off. Have a great week. And we'll see you next week. Okay. All right, Anna, I will set up Zoom for you and make sure that you're all set there. So give me a moment and I'll email that out to you. All right. We'll see you later, everyone.